Hello and happy Monday, everyone. Today we're doing our box office recap where Quentin Tarantino posted his biggest opening weekend of his career. Then on top of that, we've got an It Chapter 2 story for you, and this one's kind of fascinating because Andy Muschietti recently spoke to the movie's runtime, and it is way longer than I ever expected it would be. Guys, I'm Perri Nemiroff. I'm back at the table, and I'm so happy about it. But not only am I back, but so is Haleigh Foutch, who hasn't been here for way too long. A busy, in-demand lady. I'm so happy to see you here again.
Thank you.
Rocha, as always.
Hello.
Thank you so much for kind of keeping everything afloat while I was gone.
It was a lot of fun. I had a great time. I loved talking with the fans and answering the questions. Thank you for the opportunity. It was a lot of fun working with Adam Smith over there, too.
Of course.
There it is.
We also have a couple of other shout-outs we have to give right now because the one and only Thad Williams had a birthday yesterday.
Hello.
So a big happy birthday to Thad. And there's another birthday boy in the room right now. Everybody, Dorian Parks. Dorian, how old are you today? Don't say 39. Don't say, okay, 24. Happy birthday, Dorian.
My
Enjoy,
God.
Celebrate. You better celebrate. I
My
see you there.
jeans are older than you. Okay.
All right, guys, let's jump into the first story of the day, which, of course, is our weekend box office. Topping the charts this weekend is The Lion King. That movie wound up making another $76.6 million. What you're seeing on the screen right now are the estimates. The actuals came in just before we went live. That is Lion King. Number 2 went to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which made $41.1 million. Then Spider-Man Far From Home took another $12.6 million in the number 3 spot. Toy Story 4 came in at number 4 with another $10.5 million. And then finally, we have Crawl rounding out the top 5 with $4.1 million. Haleigh, we got to start with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because that one is now the biggest opening weekend of Tarantino's career, and I read tons of box office reports going into the weekend. I fell on the side of predicting that it would achieve that honor, but I saw so many out there thinking it was going to come in closer to 30 million. So which side of that divide did you fall on?
I was on your side.
Yes.
It has, he always has these incredible ensembles, but I think this is his starriest ensemble in terms of the 3 leads are all very popular, very big movie stars. And it's also, we're on the 50th anniversary of Sharon Tate's murder, so that's a very buzzy topic right now. We're also approaching, this is in theory his second to last film, so each one has a little more hype around it than the last because of that. So I thought this would absolutely, when it was tracking, it might be his biggest. It's going to be his biggest.
The ensemble, just the Hollywood vibe that the film is kind of celebrating. I think all of that combined with everything you just said basically propelled it to that number 1 spot for his opening weekends at least. And Inglourious Bastards is my favorite Tarantino movie. I have watched that movie too many times. So as much as I was rooting for that one to still maintain the honor, I'm kind of happy to see this one bring up that number a little more. So I think I won either way.
You always like to see an original bold film do well at the box office.
Absolutely.
I think you can't discount the studio. It's his first studio release. So having a studio like this, like Sony behind it, the marketing campaign, everything behind it also might have contributed to the numbers as well, and also attracting these level of stars to his picture as well. So that's something to be explored and taken a look at as it goes forward with Tarantino Pictures. If he maintains this relationship with Sony or wherever, I wonder if his box office will now start to go on the higher ascent than it was, because I don't believe he's going to be done at 10.
No.
So I wonder if this starts to become what we expect his films to do on opening weekend.
Do you guys have any predictions for what might happen weekend 2? We always talk about it. Big opening weekend. Yeah, it's great. It's important, but you want to see a movie have legs. It's got to be cinema score. We have Hobbs and Shaw opening up.
Right.
Do you see this one finding itself, hitting a big drop, or is it going to chug along throughout the rest of the summer?
I could see it hanging on for a while. I think it's going to be a buzzy awards contender. There's the story that came out, this morning, I think, that basically the Oscar screening had to turn away a bunch of people because it was the 1,000-seat theater was completely full.
Wow.
So that's something that people like to get interested in. I also think it's we haven't seen this much of in my opinion, a star power turn from Brad Pitt for quite a while, and people love Brad Pitt, and that's an exciting thing to see. But it's also become a really hot point of conversation right now, which I think will, for at least the second weekend, fuel a lot of curiosity.
I could not agree more with that. Also, it's one of those movies that when I walked away from it, It was a lot. It's a long 2-hour, 45-minute movie.
is.
But the more I was away from my initial viewing and the more I thought about it, the more I appreciate it. And whenever that happens, that makes me want to go back again.
Yeah.
So a second viewing will likely be in my future.
Yeah, I wonder with the cinema score going down the way it did, or coming in at a B rather than the A- that was before, you wonder, okay, is this going to affect it? Plus, yes, you talk about the hot point. I think some people, controversy too, didn't like that ending, and I've seen a number of articles about it. So maybe those people would normally go back to see a Tarantino movie on the second weekend won't. So I'm curious to see how this plays out. If this will be a large drop or if this will be kind of a middling drop. But I don't sense the same kind of buzz about this Tarantino film as I've sensed on other films. Like in a different way, you sense the controversy, but the buzz, the desire. You got to go see this one. I don't see a lot of people doing that online. So
Oh, that's a
we'll
a
see.
fair point. I think the fact that it's such a big conversation piece is what's going to keep my next prediction from not being that big of a drop. I don't think we're going to see this thing tank. It's going to be somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
Speaking of very minimal drops at the box office, Rocha, I know you want to plug another movie that's
Yeah.
very close to my heart right now.
I know it's crazy for me to start looking at these smaller films like Yesterday, but now Crawl itself. Crawl is at 45 million worldwide quietly. All these people love this film. They felt that, not screening it for the critics was such a massive mistake from the studio. But now look at this little engine that could. And this is the way it's supposed to go. A film by word of mouth. This is what we're going to. All these people complaining about all the studios doing these big pictures and reboots and remakes and franchises, blah, blah, blah. What's going to defeat it? It's word of mouth. You have the power as a movie-going audience, and you see this now happening more and more with these smaller films. Sadly, it didn't happen with Booksmart, but with Crawl, with Yesterday, this is starting to happen, and I wonder how Blinded by the Light is going to do when it comes out in the next few weeks. Is this going to go and sail in because of Yesterday and other smaller pictures kind of, elevating it, or is it going to sink like Booksmart unfortunately did? We'll see, but this, I like what's happening with Crawl. I like that people are going and remembering that summer is a good time to also get yourself scared the hell out of by alligators or whatever in the water. That's great, and hopefully this kind of puts a little buzz behind Kaya Scodelario's name as well for other things. So to me, personally, this excites me. I love it. It was a fun time at the movies.
I wouldn't mind hearing that. Seriously, though, a 33.4% weekend 2 dip for
Yeah.
a horror movie. Very, very nice. And I'm just happy to see that word of mouth seems to have done something for this, because it's
Yeah.
very easy for a movie like that to have its opening weekend profits slashed in half. We can't move on without talking about The Lion King. So that movie wound up dropping way more than what I expected. And it still made a nice, you can't look at $76.6 million and say that's not enough for weekend 2, but a 60% drop is very big, especially when you compare it to the other Disney reimaginings. I do believe if you compare it to the others, that is the biggest weekend 2 drop. And originally I was looking at something like Beauty and the Beast and thinking it was going to hang on that much. It didn't. So do you guys think this is a sign of what's to come? Is it going to keep getting its profits slashed to that extent?
Yeah, I think so. I've been saying this since we saw the screening was it'll get a big opening weekend. I didn't anticipate it getting to $1 billion this quickly. That's incredible. But I felt like the word of mouth of people seeing this film and thinking that it's just a rehash of the animated film, shot for shot for a majority of that film, almost 95% of that film is a shot-for-shot remake. I don't think that's going to make people want to go back and see it over and over again. So yes, I'm not surprised by the drop. I think the drop will be severe, and I've been saying it's going to be the legs that proves whether this film was successful, not necessarily the opening weekend. So I think it's going to keep dropping.
Yes, I agree, but I also think it's hard to say it's not successful already. Being that it has hit $1 billion and the Disney
Close enough at this point.
Yeah.
You get $1 billion, he gets $1 billion, they get $1 billion.
Disney gets $1 billion.
Yeah,
Disney
pretty
does
much.
get $1 billion.
Yeah, it's not. I think we're seeing an interesting thing that people want these movies in idea, but then they go and they maybe aren't enjoying them as much as they hoped they would.
Yeah.
I certainly haven't enjoyed the last few remakes as much as I hoped I would. The surprise one that I liked the most this year was actually Dumbo, which nobody liked. And it's, I think that it's an interesting sign for Disney's live action remakes, but if they can come out with one that's just a home run across the board, then that will sort of reinvigorate the brand again. And again, it's a success. It's hard to say that they're like, damn, we shouldn't have made The Lion King, but maybe not a success to the point that they had hoped it would be.
Do you think it's us, like the way we feel about the film, the general public's like, we don't care. We're just going to see The Lion King and making that $1 billion, and you can complain about it being shot for shot. We're still going to go see it multiple times and take our kids to see it multiple times because there has to be a reason this thing got to $1 billion that quickly.
Not necessarily, because yes, we and everybody out there watching this, we're kind of steeped into the entertainment industry all the time, and we know every single thing that Disney is cooking up from now and into the next few years in the future. But I don't know, just being home last week, I got to speak to a lot of friends and family, and I've heard so many different reactions from some folks out there who say to me, yeah, my kids have the original animated movie. I'm not going to spend $22 just to take one kid to get popcorn and soda and everything to see the movie. Yeah. Then I had someone else have this incredible experience with the movie where she's kind of in the same boat as I am, where I grew up loving this story so much, and just the majesty and awe and just how incredible it was to see that story told on the big screen with photoreal image. It blew my mind, and it had the same effect on her. So I think that with these Disney reimaginings, it basically is in the same boat of problems as the continuation of most franchises out there, where the bar can only go up and up and up, and I feel like the more it continues, the more difficult it is to appease everybody. The second you shackle yourself to an existing franchise or a movie that your movie is based on, you're already left with a set of expectations, and it becomes very hard to keep meeting those.
Yes, I think that it's hard to say because they have 1 million projects in development right now, right? But in general, at least the ones we got this year felt more that they were beholden to sort of a very strict remake format more than a reimagining, as you say. Whereas something, a lot of people, again, maybe I just have terrible taste in Disney live action. I quite like Maleficent. And that's something more interesting and new to do with it. And I wonder if people are going to burn out on the straight up remake approach.
That's an interesting thought. I'm just comparing the ones that speak to you more compared to me, and I don't know, maybe just the two of us sitting here are a representation of the wide movie-going public and how it's kind of split.
I'm just chopped liver, I guess.
Yeah, that you are.
Mulan is going to be an interesting. Mulan is going to be an interesting segment. It's interesting. Trial balloon to see, because this is one that is what people have been clamoring for, which is a change from the original film. A lot of changes being made from the original film. The songs are being removed. Basically, it'll be a score. I think the love interest is being removed. So this is going to be a good test for Disney wanting to change course a little bit on these remakes and take more chances with them, because Aladdin made changes. Lion King really didn't that much. So, but both those films made $1 billion. So.
Aladdin's changes were very small, though. I mean.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think so.
Don't?
Oh no, I think there were a lot of big changes in Aladdin and I'm a massive fan of that animated film. So for me, that was way more changes than Favreau did with Lion King.
More, but I still think it's very close to a straight up remake.
Well, okay.
Minus the changes they made to Jasmine.
Yeah.
I mean, minus the changes they made to Jasmine's arc. I mean, I think that was the biggest difference for me between the original animated movie and what we got. I'm very curious though now. Yeah. If you had to pick your top Disney remake and your least favorite, what would they be?
Jungle Book #1. Okay. That is just fantastic, and it's sad. I'm sorry to say for Haleigh, Dumbo is certainly my worst. I hated it. 2 pieces, I hated it. I was so mad because I love that original. And then Tim had me for the first 30, 45 minutes, and then I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on now. So, yeah, basically.
I think I'm Jungle Book, and then, I'm sorry, Haleigh. not Dumbo. It's Maleficent. Maleficent really put me off.
Yeah.
Mine it's my favorite is Cinderella, bar none. It's the best.
Yeah. That's up there for me.
You guys are just wrong. And then my least it might be, well, are we counting the sequels?
I was gonna say, are we counting the 2 Alice in Wonderland movies?
Oh, those are the worst. No,
Alice
I'm not counting those at all.
Alice in Wonderland 2 is by far the worst. I mean,
that's fair. That's absolutely fair.
But if we're not counting sequels, then Alice in Wonderland 1.
Okay. Guys, let's toss that to you. Put it in the chat. Maybe Dorian will update us. What are your favorite and least favorite of all these Disney reimaginings, remakes, whatever you want to call them? We are very curious to know your thoughts as well. Now, we have to tell you about some content coming to the channel, like a little show called Heroes. Check out this promo.
Hi, I'm Amy Dallin, one of the hosts of Collider Heroes, and starting right now, you can catch our show at a new time and format. We're coming at you Tuesday nights with a new shorter Collider Heroes and a longer Collider Heroes podcast, where Coy and I are gonna talk your ears off. You already know that's coming. So make sure to go to YouTube, subscribe, and find us on the Collider Heroes podcast feed for all of that sweaty goodness.
In addition to Collider Heroes, you also have a brand new episode of Rule of Two coming your way today after Movie Talk, actually. And what they're doing on that show is they're taking your live calls live at 5 p.m. PT. You go, you check it out, watch that live video, and you'll see the number to call in right on the screen. So have some fun with the 2 marks. All right, moving on to story number 2. We are going into the horror genre with this one. During an interview with Digital Spy, It Chapter 2 director Andy Muschietti confirmed that the film is currently coming in at 2 hours and 45 minutes, a half hour longer than the 2017 film. His specific quote, "Nobody who's seen the movie has had any complaint." So, okay. I am of the mind that, like, the more Pennywise, the better, especially after seeing the first It movie. But I mean, is that really true? Does this sound kind of ridiculous for another It movie?
Well, for me, I'm excited by this because the book is so massive, and this It was transcendent as a horror film. The first installment, the first chapter for me, it was not just horror or the standard jump scares. There was so much more to it, and I enjoy that. I know, here we go, these two. I see the witching hour.
I never
jumping
generalize about horror. I wouldn't do such a thing.
I have my proof now.
There's more to it than you would find in most horror movies, in my opinion. In my opinion, it feels more like like they're trying to create something of a classic horror film within that, to be revered, to possibly get awards, Oscar films. You know, horror films are rarely looked at for awards. This feels like something that transcends it. So to go 2 hours and 45 minutes, it makes sense to me for them to do that, because Muschietti probably sees this thing as a legitimate piece of art that could achieve awards, could receive consideration down the road. So why not? We saw that with Endgame. We saw that with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. These are the kinds of approaches with people when studios or filmmakers want to get attention or see their work as something more than just the standard fare in the genre. So that's my point of view.
I don't necessarily read it as this runtime signifies that they think they have an Oscar contender on their hand, but I will echo something you just said, because I do think that part of the first It movie's success comes from the fact that it is, yes, a very successful horror movie, but it's also a really moving coming of age story. There are so many more things that I think brings that first It movie as close to 4 quadrant as possible, where there is really something for everybody, despite how you feel about certain elements of the genre that you might have seen done before that aren't really for you. That movie is working on so many different levels, and I've got a lot of faith they're going to keep that with It Chapter 2.
Yeah, I'm a little torn because I love the first It film, or, the first one in this installment, and that film functioned very well as a sort of funhouse roller coaster horror movie that was built on peaks and valleys over a very sort of like precise timing. And this kind of runtime, 165 minutes, says, I'm making a very different movie with, you would think, very different scares, because you can't structure a roller coaster for almost 3 hours. People will want to pass out, It's way too long. That's interesting. We saw the footage at, Comic-Con. It had a different look to it. It's a lot more vibrant. It has a different feel because of the adult actors. And yet we know it's also flashing back to more of the kids. So I'm very curious how that time is going to reflect in the tone of the film and the way the scares are approached, how much we're going to get of what we liked in the first one versus something a little different. It's a very, very long horror movie. That's really long. Just for comparison, Midsummer, which just came out, was long. That was 147 minutes. And Suspiria wasn't even as long. That was 153. So this is a big-ass movie. That's a lot to process.
That's why you say it's big for a horror movie. And I'm like, well, because it's not just a horror movie. It's more than just a horror movie. I think it's, as I said, transcendent the genre. So I like this idea, actually. It excites me, actually, because I think I agree with, from the footage and everything you just said, you're right. The roller coaster thing couldn't last for 2 hours and 45 minutes. Look at Endgame. Endgame starts real reflective, real contemplative, and that may be a majority of this movie, and then the horror slides in where it's supposed to slide in, and it goes into, and once again, it touches on this idea, what you said, Perry, the coming of age. Now these adults coming back and facing past sins that they may have to atone for or confront and get past. That's going to be fun to see, more of an introspective approach to horror, and I love that.
I'm not opposed to it at all. It's interesting.
I don't know, maybe opposed is the wrong word. I have a lot of faith that if this is the decision they come to, and let's not forget, this is a comment he made in an interview. They still have some time before the movie comes out. For all we know, it will be trimmed. This isn't a locked official runtime by any means. It's something that was brought up in an interview. But if this winds up being his choice, I believe in him as a filmmaker to go into it with the hope that he is going to justify every single second that my butt is in that seat. But I mean, when I think about the book, because you bring up how long the book is, I'm excited to get the kids' material and the adult material weaving back and forth. I'm also excited to see some of the little side stories be incorporated into this. When I first heard that they were going to include the Adrian Mellon stuff, yes, give me that. And if that's the kind of stuff we're going to get with this beefed up runtime, it sounds like it's going to serve the movie for the better.
Yeah, I hope so. And he said, when I talked to him at Comic-Con, he mentioned this at the footage screening. This seems to be really important to the director, Andy Muschietti, that this is a film about repressed trauma and unrepressing it.
That's awesome.
And that's a great theme to hook a meaty film into that can earn an almost 3-hour runtime, and I'm really excited for that, maybe most of all because you have actors like Jessica Chastain and Bill Hader doing it, and they're phenomenal.
Is this and this could be kind of a smaller, minor trend where we're starting to be okay with these longer films coming out more consistently and being in the theater for them, And a lot of people push back in the days past. Executives, you got to cut it down to 2 hours. People aren't going to consume it. Is this with Endgame, with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, with possibly It Chapter 2? Are we starting to see the public open up the doors a little bit to a 3-hour movie? Why? Well, they're binging now at home anyway for hours on end shows. Maybe that's they're being trained more and more to be okay to sit in a theater for 3 hours and consume something that takes them on a ride. I wonder.
It's an interesting point.
I will counter that with I'm not opposed to 3-hour movies or whatever. Suspiria is one of my favorite movies of all time.
There you go, yeah.
But I also have a huge amount of respect for a tight film like the 86-minute Crawl, which is brilliant, and I would love to see more of those as well if we're getting more of the longer ones. I think that for a few years there's been this sort of glut of 2-hour, 20-minute films that could shed a few minutes, and so I'd love to see films commit one direction or another to either a really tight film or something that needs that space.
Give me the best of both worlds. Yeah. Let's get to a couple of live chat questions, and I have a good transition because, of course, you brought up Suspiria because I know how much you love Suspiria. We've got a question from Bert Mills in the live chat who's asking, would you rather see a new adaptation of Lord of the Flies or an American version of Battle Royale? This is being brought up because, of course, Luca Guadagnino is possibly directing as his next film an adaptation of Lord of the Flies. So where do you stand on this question and Guadagnino doing Lord of the Flies?
I'll follow Guadagnino anywhere. He's a genius.
I had a feeling
he made my favorite film of the year 2 years in a row. I'm obsessed with him. And I think Lord of the Flies is an infinite story. You can tell that story in endless, as every storyteller in every medium has been doing since that book came out. You can repurpose it to comic books, to other books, to series. There was just The Society on Netflix, which is Lord of the Flies. That can be anything. So I am very excited to see his take on the material.
I probably wouldn't see a Lord of the Flies movie. I'm good. I read it. I'm good. I get it. But an American Battle Royale scares me because way back when I used to work for Charles Seegers as a temp, way back when in the early 2000s, and he had me go on this mission to find these Japanese horror films or these Japanese harsh films because he wanted to convert the business when Ring was happening. And I presented Battle Royale to him because I'd gotten a tape from Japan of it and watched it. And I said, this one. And he's like, they'll never make it. They'll never make it. It's too brutal. So if you're going to do an American version of Battle, which excites me, go all the way. No, don't cut it. Don't make it safe for American audiences. Go all the effing way or don't bother. So it would excite me if it's going all the way, and Luca may be the person, if you'd switch him over to do that. Who could? I'm just saying. Who could?
Interesting.
Yeah.
If Luca was involved, I would watch it. I don't necessarily know. I hate this phrase, but like in my life, I don't know if I need an American version of Battle Royale. I have Battle Royale. We've seen Hunger Games. Even something like Belko Experiment has a tinge of Battle Royale to it. I was telling you, Haleigh, I just listened to the audiobook for The Long Walk, so I feel like that kind of storytelling, like I'm up to my eyeballs in that kind of storytelling right now. Let that other movie, which is a great movie, just exist on its own.
I'm always good with a remake as long as it's well done.
Yeah.
Like if you bring on someone like Luca, sure, then I'm excited about it. But that usually isn't the way they go. I would. That's one of my favorite movies of all time. I cannot rave enough about Battle Royale.
Yep, agreed.
And so I feel a slight bit more precious about it than I tend to about remakes. But at the same time, the idea of a really pioneering filmmaker doing something new with it, that is exciting.
It's a very good point, because even last week when I was semi-skimming the news feeds, I thought I couldn't want another interpretation of the I Know What You Did Last Summer story any less. And then all of a sudden I read the headline that James Wan was involved, and I'm like, all right, I can see it now.
That's another one of those ones that I think is somewhat infinite, though, because it's just an urban legend, right? You can remake that in a million ways.
But did you see the most recent one?
Did I?
You might be burnt out after you've seen that one, or at least I was. High hopes for James Wan with that franchise, though. All right, guys, that is a wrap on this Monday edition of Collider Movie Talk. As always, I must thank Rocha and Haleigh
Thank you.
for being here at the table with me. Adam in the booth, thank you for your hard work. As to you, Dorian, right there, happy birthday. Celebrate.
Happy
It's
birthday.
important. All right, guys, we are done for the day. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Please don't forget to like and share it, and then tune back in tomorrow, 3 p.m. PT Live, for a brand new episode.